We all love a good improvised moment from our favourite movies and TV shows, such as Jim Carrey accidentally performing a perfect tablecloth trick only to then push everything over, Heath Ledger fiddling with the detonator because his pyrotechnics failed to trigger, and Robert Downey Jr. improvising the iconic "I am Iron Man" at the end of Avengers Endgame. Now, what did all of these scenes have in common? They were all improvised, right? Wrong. All of these are a perfect example of a myth appearing from thin air claiming a moment was improvised. And by myth, I mean a lie. To understand this mix-up, we first need to clarify the difference between improvising and a rewrite. The definition of improvising is to create or perform spontaneously or without preparation. The definition of rewrite, unsurprisingly, is to rewrite something again so as to alter or improve it. So in this context, improvising would be where you come up with dialogue or a punchline or an action off the top of your head with no direction. A rewrite, however, would be how in Friends, Joey claims he writes a lot of his own lines. The example he gives being the original script said, "If we don't get this woman to a hospital, she's going to die," whereas he changed the line to, "She's not gonna live." This false claim makes the writers of Joey's show angry and they kill off his character in retaliation. But Joey doesn't understand why the writers would be mad, because this claim makes him look good, which makes the show look good, and therefore makes the writers look good. This episode from 1996 highlights how rumours and statements like this shine the spotlight directly on the actors and actually takes away credit from the people who originally came up with the idea, which we're going to look into today. Starting off with Avengers Endgame, where the claim is that Robert Downey Jr. improvised the iconic "I am Iron Man." We all know the ending to Avengers Endgame, right? Thanos gets the Infinity Stones back, he says "I am inevitable," he snaps his fingers and nothing happens because Tony Stark had yoinked them off screen, and he makes his own Infinity Gauntlet. He says "I am Iron Man" in a callback to the end of Iron Man 1, which also has a claim that he improvised that line too. He snaps his fingers and he saves the day. It's kind of like the "I am all of the Sith" and "I am all of the Jedi" scene from Rise of Skywalker, except this scene's actually good. According to co-director Anthony Russo, they originally filmed it with Tony not saying anything before snapping his fingers, and it was actually editor Jeff Ford who came up with the idea of him replying "I am Iron Man." They then brought this idea to Robert Downey Jr. and he didn't want to reshoot it. So not only did he not improvise the line, he was actually against saying it. Looking past the fact that this rumor takes credit away from Jeff Ford, but also, that's not improvising. That's reshooting a scene after production has wrapped. That's like claiming Whose Line Is It Anyway is an improv comedy show, whereas in reality, someone sets up a joke, the other person says nothing, then months later someone else comes over to the comedian and says, "Hey, I thought of an ending to this joke." The comedian says, "I don't want to do that," and then they have to be convinced to come months later to reshoot that after they've had so long to think of the perfect punchline. That's not improv. That's the exact opposite of improv. Also, according to someone on Reddit, which they didn't provide a source, so definitely take that with a grain of salt, they claimed that the ending originally had Tony Stark saying, "And I am sorry," which, is lame as fuck. Can you imagine if Thanos wiped out half of the universe, came back to do it again, and Tony Stark was like, "Sorry." Now we're going to be talking about the iconic tablecloth scene from How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Now, I actually found out about this rumour being debunked by YouTuber Gibsonbobibson with his video titled "That Grinch Tablecloth Thing Isn't True." And I'll definitely have his video linked in the description below because it is such a well-made video and so in-depth for a 4-minute video. It's 4 minutes and it's got so much information and it's so well-paced, so definitely check it out. The claim for this scene is that Jim Carrey was actually meant to pull the tablecloth off and everything along with it, but accidentally did a perfect tablecloth trick and left everything on the table where it was. So in his genius mind, he ran over and pushed everything off the table because that's what was meant to happen. And in Gibsonbobibson's video, man, this is really hard to say, so I'm trying to get one take of this, but in Gibsonbobibson's video, he states that he tried to find evidence proving that this was true, and couldn't find anything. He went through interviews, audio commentary, he even tried to contact someone to try and find the storyboard, but to no avail. He was really trying to prove that this claim was real, and couldn't find anything proving it.
So eventually, instead of trying to prove that it was improvised, I switched to trying to prove it wasn't.
Very quickly, he finds a script for the movie in its early stages of production, and wouldn't you know it, there's the scene.
The entire gag is spelled out in pretty plain English, and it's one of the only gags that didn't really change a whole lot. He crosses to a table, yanks the tablecloth off without disturbing a thing. Beat, he kicks the table over.
Again, I question, where did this rumour come from? There's no mention of it being improvised by Jim Carrey himself or any of the casting crew on set, so someone clearly saw this scene and thought, oh, that was silly. That seems like a very Jim Carrey thing to do. I bet he came up with that, instead of the opposite, where they wrote the joke, saw Jim Carrey, and thought, hey, Jim Carrey fits this joke really well, instead of Jim Carrey making the joke himself. Which, again, I say, spreading and creating these rumours takes the spotlight away from the people who originally came up with the idea. And finally, we have what I believe is the most popular rumour on this topic of an improvised scene, and that is the hospital scene in The Dark Knight. This theory was actually spoken about and prematurely debunked by Christopher Nolan on the DVD release of The Dark Knight in a behind-the-scenes video. I even bought the DVD myself to see if that claim was true. That's right, I bought a DVD to see a clip of Christopher Nolan talking about a scene that people are still claiming is improvised to this day. The problem with that being that the version I bought didn't have a special features option, so I had to buy another copy. So I had to go back to the store, and I ended up finding this version that looks bootleg as fuck, and that didn't have the special features either, so that's $10 I'll never see again. And for some reason, this copy of the DVD had a trailer for Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. I don't know why. I did end up finding the clip I was looking for on YouTube, but there is this big watermark in the middle, but that's the best I could find.
Because what Chris worked out is if we put in a little beat where the first set of explosions stops as if something's gone wrong, and the Joker just takes a second to look around, surprised, like the audience is surprised, then the major demolition comes in and he jumps straight into the school bus.
The DVDs of The Dark Knight with the special features came out in December of 2008, and someone still had the balls to create the lie that this was all unintentional. And the possibility of this rumour being fake wasn't brought into light until NerdSync's video in 2017 titled, "What Everyone Gets Wrong About Heath Ledger's Joker." This is the earliest thing I can find debunking the myth, and it's from 9 years after the movie's release.
Boy, what a fun piece of trivia. What a cool story behind the scenes of the movie. The problem is, it's false.
And I don't want to get too serious or political here, but this is a real problem in nowadays, especially with the increase of AI videos and photos. We all generally have the same access to information as one another. We all had access to the Dark Knight DVD release and the special features showing Christopher Nolan talking about how that scene was mapped out to a T, and there were definitely people that saw that. And yet, this rumour of Heath Ledger's amazing improvising abilities completely overshadowed the truth for almost 10 years. Well, actually more than that, because there are still people posting YouTube shorts and comments and Instagram reels and TikToks, you name it, echoing the same debunked myth of this all being done on the spot. And that's kind of sad. Even though this is quite insignificant in the grand scheme of things, it's still upsetting to know that people will never know the truth and will actually be arguing against it when confronted by it. Even when the director himself said the scene was planned out, people will still choose to believe what is real or not, either because they like the narrative more, or because they want to give the actor extra credit. Especially in the case of Heath Ledger, who is still seen to be the best Joker of a live-action performance. And when people hear that these actors like Jim Carrey, Robert Downey Jr. and Heath Ledger improvised a lot of their dialogue on set, they just see any joke and go, I bet that was one of them, without any claims to back it up, and that's how these rumors spread. And I'm not trying to tear down these actors and take any credit away from them, that's not what I'm trying to do at all. I'm just saying that we shouldn't have to make up lies in order to make an actor look good at their job, especially when it takes credit away from other people. So next time you see something being claimed as an improvised moment or on-the-spot thinking, just take it with a grain of salt and maybe do a little bit more research. That's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe and click the like button, and I will see you all in the next video. See you later. Heath Ledger fiddling with the detonator because the pyrotechnic, there is fluff right in front of the camera lens. I didn't know if that caught it up. I picked it up, so we'll do that one again. I actually bought the DVD myself to see if this was true. That's right, I went to a store to buy the DVD to see if this was true, is what I just said. That's right, I bought the DVD to do research on a scene that Christopher Nolan spoke about that is still being claimed to be improvised. That was a weird emphasis. The problem with that is that the version I bought there's no disc in it.
Hey, this is Chuck Green from Dead Rising. You keep watching Kyle Evans. This guy rocks. And don't forget to bring your Zombrex. Come visit me on Instagram. Chuck Green out.